Dr. Park Yuna ran through the burning fields of Kepler 442b as the sky turned dark with alien ships. The corn stalks that had grown tall and green just yesterday now lay crushed under the weight of massive insect-like creatures. She clutched her research tablet close to her chest and tried not to look at the bodies of her fellow colonists scattered across the ground. The Veltar had come without warning, and they had come hungry. The emergency beacon in her hand blinked red as she broadcast, another desperate message into space. Her voice shook as she spoke into the device, but she kept talking because it was the only hope left for the 3,000 people still alive on this farming world. The Galactic Council had to hear them, and they had to send help soon, or everyone would die. Captain Lee Minho was drinking coffee in the mess hall of the Iron Will when the distress signal reached his ship. The mining vessel was 3-star systems away from Kepler 442b, but space communication traveled fast, and the message was clear. He set down his cup and listened to the scared voice of a woman begging for help. His crew gathered around him as the transmission played again and again. The voice belonged to Dr. Park Yuna, and she was telling them about creatures that moved like a swarm and ate everything in their path. She described how the aliens had ships that looked like giant beetles, and how they used some kind of acid to melt through the colony buildings. The farming equipment was useless against them, and the security team had run out of ammunition on the first day. Most of the colonists were hiding in underground storage areas, but food was running low. Engineer Choi Hana pulled up star charts on her tablet and showed Captain Lee the distance to Kepler 442b. It would take 18 hours to reach the planet, if they pushed their engines to maximum speed. The Iron Will was not a warship, but it carried mining explosives and heavy equipment that could be useful. She looked at the captain and waited for his decision. Commander Kim Do-hyun received the same distress signal aboard his ship, the Determination. His small fleet of 3 vessels was conducting deep space operations when the message arrived. He had 200 crew members and enough firepower to handle pirates or small threats, but the reports from Kepler 442b suggested something much bigger. The woman on the transmission mentioned thousands of enemy ships and creatures that seemed to have no fear of death. The Galactic Council station received the distress call at the same time, but their response was different. The council members gathered in their crystal chambers and debated what to do about the situation. Some wanted to send a rescue fleet immediately, while others argued that the colony was too far from important trade routes to justify the cost. They talked about evacuation procedures and discussed whether the agricultural world was worth saving at all. Dr. Park Yuna crouched in the abandoned research station and tried to understand what the Veltar wanted. She had studied alien biology for 15 years, but these creatures were unlike anything in the galactic databases. They moved with perfect coordination, as if controlled by a single mind, and they seemed to be harvesting both crops and people for some unknown purpose. The acid they sprayed dissolved organic matter quickly, and they used the resulting liquid to feed their young. The research station had been her workplace for 3 years, and now it was her hiding place. The thick walls kept out the Veltar for now, but she could hear them moving around outside. Their chittering sounds filled the air, and sometimes she heard the terrible noise they made when they found another group of survivors. She forced herself to keep broadcasting and hoped someone would answer their call for help. Captain Lee Minho called a meeting with his senior officers and told them about the situation on Kepler 442b. The Iron Will was a mining ship with 40 crew members, and it was not designed for combat. They had cutting tools and explosives, but no real weapons and no training for military operations. Several officers suggested they contact the authorities and let the professionals handle the crisis. Lee Minho stood at the head of the conference table and looked at each of his crew members. He had served in the merchant fleet for 12 years and had never been in a real fight, but something about Dr. Park Yuna's voice made him want to help. The woman sounded brave despite her fear, and she was asking for assistance that might not come from anywhere else. He made his decision and told his crew they were changing course for Kepler 442b. Engineer Choi Hana immediately began planning how to convert their mining equipment into weapons. The ship carried powerful laser cutters that could slice through asteroid rock and explosive charges designed to break apart large mineral deposits. She thought these tools might work against alien ships if they were modified correctly. The cargo bay held enough raw materials to build basic defensive systems, and maybe some offensive capabilities too. Commander Kim Do-hyun faced a harder choice. because he commanded multiple ships and hundreds of lives. His fleet included the Determination, the Resilience, and the Defiance, all equipped for exploration and mining operations. The crews were experienced with dangerous work, but fighting alien invaders was completely different from their usual missions. He gathered his captains for a video conference and presented the situation honestly. The Galactic Council continued their debates while people died on Kepler 442b. Some members wanted to send observers to study the Veltar and learn about their technology before taking action. Others suggested that the colony had been established without proper authorization and therefore deserved no protection. A few council members pointed out that military intervention might provoke the aliens and lead to a larger conflict. Dr. Park Yuna managed to establish contact with other survivor groups hiding across the planet. The colonists had taken shelter in underground facilities, storage bunkers, and natural caves, but their supplies were running out quickly. The Veltar seemed to be searching systematically for remaining humans, and they were getting better at finding the hiding places. Children were crying from hunger, and several elderly colonists had already died from stress and exhaustion. The Iron Will jumped to faster-than-light speed and began its journey toward Kepler 442b. Captain Lee Minho knew they might be flying into a situation they could not handle, but the alternative was doing nothing while innocent people suffered. His crew worked frantically to prepare for whatever they might find when they arrived. Choi Hana welded armor plates onto the ship's hull and mounted mining lasers in positions where they could fire at enemy targets. Commander Kim Do-hyun made his decision after hearing more detailed reports from the colony. The Veltar were not just raiders looking for quick profit, but seemed to be consuming everything on the planet, including the soil itself. This was not a temporary attack, but a complete invasion that would leave nothing alive. He ordered his fleet to follow the Iron Will to Kepler 442b and prepare for combat operations. Dr. Park Yuna sent one final transmission before the Veltar found her research station. She gave detailed information about alien weaknesses she had observed and provided coordinates for the largest survivor groups. Her voice was calm now as she accepted that help might not arrive in time. She thanked anyone who might be listening and asked them to remember that the people of Kepler 442b had tried to live in peace. The human ships raced through space toward an unknown enemy, while the Galactic Council continued to debate. Dr. Park Yuna prepared to make her last stand in a research station filled with farming data and biological samples. The Veltar circled closer to their prey and prepared for another feeding cycle. Soon the peaceful farming world would see what happened when humans decided to fight back. The Iron Will dropped out of faster-than-light travel, and Captain Lee Minho saw hell spread across the surface of Kepler 442b. Thousands of dark shapes moved through the atmosphere like a plague of locusts, and the once green farming world now looked brown and dead. Smoke rose from burning settlements, and the orbital sensors showed massive alien ships feeding on the planet's biomass. Lee Minho had never seen anything so terrible in his 12 years of space travel. Dr. Park Yuna was still alive and broadcasting from her research station when the human ships arrived. Her voice came through the communication system, weak but determined, as she provided tactical information about the Veltar. She had been studying the aliens for 3 days and had learned important facts about their behavior patterns. The creatures moved in perfect coordination, but seemed to have trouble adapting when their plans were disrupted by unexpected actions. Engineer Choi Hana scanned the alien fleet and counted over 2,000 ships of various sizes. The largest vessels were kilometers long and shaped like massive beetles with armored shells that could deflect most weapons. Smaller ships swarmed around them like worker insects protecting their hive. The Iron Will and its 2 companion vessels looked tiny compared to the alien armada, but Choi Hana had ideas about how to hurt them anyway. Commander Kim Do-hyun established communication with the other human ships and began coordinating their approach. The Determination, Resilience, and Defiance were all mining vessels converted for combat, but they carried enough explosives to damage alien ships if used correctly. His crews had worked during the journey to modify their equipment, and now they were ready to test human engineering against alien technology. The Veltar noticed the approaching human ships, but did not seem concerned about the threat. Their largest vessels continued feeding on the planet's surface, while smaller ships moved to intercept the newcomers. Dr. Park Yuna warned the humans that the aliens had some kind of group mind that allowed them to coordinate perfectly, but also made them predictable in certain ways. She suggested attacking their communication systems to disrupt their unity. Captain Lee Minho ordered his crew to target the lead alien ship with everything they had. The Iron Will's mining lasers fired at maximum power and cut deep gouges in the beetle-like hull. Explosive charges launched from cargo tubes struck the alien vessel and caused significant damage. The Veltar ship returned fire with acid sprays that ate through metal, but the humans had expected this and reinforced their hull with extra armor plates. The first battle lasted only 20 minutes, but it taught both sides important lessons. The humans learned that Veltar ships were tough but not invincible, and their acid weapons had limited range. The aliens discovered that humans fought in ways that made no sense according to their understanding of warfare. Instead of retreating when outnumbered, the human ships charged forward and used suicide tactics that somehow worked without anyone actually dying. Choi Hana made a crucial discovery when she analyzed the wreckage of a destroyed Veltar fighter. The alien technology relied on biological components that could be disrupted by specific sound frequencies. She quickly modified the ship's communication system to broadcast these frequencies at high power. The results were immediate and dramatic, as nearby alien ships began losing coordination and flying into each other. Dr. Park Yuna provided more intelligence from her hiding place as she watched the battle through the research station's sensors. She noticed that the Veltar became confused and agitated when exposed to certain types of electromagnetic radiation. The aliens seemed to communicate through a combination of pheromones and electrical signals that could be jammed using modified mining equipment. This information proved vital for the human counterattack. The Resilience scored a major victory when its crew used mining charges as improvised missiles against a Veltar command ship. Captain Park Ji-ho loaded his cargo bay with explosives and flew directly at the alien vessel while broadcasting recordings of human music at maximum volume. The sound patterns disrupted the Veltar's coordination so badly that they could not target the approaching ship effectively. The resulting explosion destroyed the command vessel and scattered its escort fighters. Commander Kim Do-hyun realized that the humans had accidentally discovered the perfect way to fight a hive-mind enemy. The Veltar were evolved for efficiency and coordination, but they could not handle chaos and unpredictability. Every time the humans did something unexpected, the alien response became slower and less effective. He ordered all ships to abandon standard military tactics and start improvising new strategies during the battle. The Defiance proved this theory when its crew began using agricultural equipment as weapons. Captain Song Mira had loaded her ship with farming tools before the journey, and now she found creative ways to use them against the aliens. Seed planting machines became missile launchers, and harvesting equipment was converted into close-range weapons. The Veltar had never encountered anything like this, and their collective intelligence could not adapt fast enough. Dr. Park Yuna managed to escape from her research station when the Veltar became distracted by the space battle. She made her way to the main colony bunker where 300 survivors were hiding in underground storage areas. The colonists had been without hope for days, but now they could see human ships fighting above their planet. Some began to believe they might actually survive this nightmare. The space battle continued for hours as human ships darted between massive alien vessels like angry wasps attacking elephants. Captain Lee Minho discovered that the Iron Will could use its mining drill as a ramming weapon against smaller Veltar ships. The drill bit could punch through alien armor, and the ship's engines provided enough thrust to escape before the enemy could respond. This tactic was insane by any military standard, but it worked perfectly against confused aliens. Choi Hana developed new weapons during the fight by combining mining equipment in unexpected ways. She connected laser cutters to cargo launchers and created a beam weapon that could slice through multiple alien ships. Explosive charges were tied together and used as area denial weapons that forced the Veltar to change their formation. Every modification was tested in combat and improved based on battlefield results. The Veltar began to show signs of something they had never experienced before in their millions of years of existence. Fear crept into their collective consciousness, as they realized these strange humans could not be defeated using conventional tactics. The alien ships started avoiding direct confrontation and tried to withdraw from combat, but the humans pursued them relentlessly. Dr. Park Yuna coordinated with the survivors to provide intelligence about Veltar ground forces. The aliens had left thousands of creatures on the planet's surface to continue harvesting, but these forces were now cut off from their command ships. Without coordination from above, the ground forces became confused and started attacking each other. The colonists realized they could fight back against isolated alien groups. Commander Kim Do-yoon ordered his fleet to focus on destroying Veltar communication ships. These vessels were smaller than the main battleships, but they coordinated the entire alien fleet. Once the communication network was disrupted, the massive alien armada began to lose cohesion. Individual ships wandered away from their assigned positions, and some even fired on their own forces by mistake. The turning point came when Captain Lee Min-ho led a desperate attack against the largest Veltar vessel. The Iron Will was damaged and running low on ammunition, but Lee Min-ho saw an opportunity to strike at the alien command structure. He loaded his ship with every remaining explosive and flew directly toward the massive beetle-shaped ship while his crew prepared for the impact. The collision should have destroyed both ships, but human engineering proved superior to alien biotechnology. The Iron Will's drill punched through the alien hull, and the mining charges exploded inside the command vessel. The Veltar ship broke apart and crashed toward the planet's surface, while the Iron Will somehow remained intact enough for its crew to survive. The destruction of the command ship sent shockwaves through the Veltar fleet. The aliens had never lost a vessel of that size, and their collective mind began to doubt the mission for the first time. Some ships tried to continue the attack while others started preparing to retreat. The lack of coordination made them vulnerable to continued human assault. Dr. Park Yuna emerged from the underground bunkers with other survivors as Veltar ground forces fled in confusion. The colonists found abandoned alien equipment and began learning how it worked. Some of the farming equipment could be modified with alien technology to create even more effective weapons. The survivors were no longer helpless victims, but were becoming active participants in their own defense. The battle above Kepler 442b continued through the night as human ships hunted down isolated Veltar vessels. Captain Lee Min-ho and his crew had proven that determination and creativity could overcome superior numbers and technology. The aliens were learning a harsh lesson about what happened when they attacked a world that humans cared about protecting. Word of the human intervention at Kepler 442b spread across the galaxy faster than the speed of light. The Galactic Council received detailed reports about the battle, but their response was not what Captain Lee Min-ho had expected. Instead of sending reinforcements, the Council issued a formal statement condemning humanity for using excessive force against the Veltar. The alien species was classified as a protected hive mind, and the humans were accused of violating several interstellar treaties. Dr. Park Yuna stood in the ruins of her research station and watched human ships unload supplies and personnel. The Iron Will had been joined by 3 more vessels carrying specialists and equipment. Among the newcomers was weapons specialist Oh Tae-hyun, a man who looked at the destroyed farming equipment and saw potential that nobody else could imagine. He walked through the burned fields and began sketching plans for converting agricultural machinery into instruments of war. The Galactic Council's response angered Commander Kim Do-hyun more than the original Veltar attack. He read the official censure while standing on the bridge of the determination and felt his blood pressure rising. The Council criticized human tactics as barbaric and demanded that all military operations cease immediately. They offered to send a diplomatic team to negotiate with the Veltar, but provided no timeline for when this might happen. Dr. Bae Suyeon arrived with the second wave of human reinforcements and immediately began studying Veltar psychology. She was a colonial psychologist who specialized in alien behavior patterns, and she had never seen anything like the hive mind collective. Her preliminary analysis suggested that the Veltar were vulnerable to psychological warfare because they had no experience with individual fear or doubt. Their entire species operated on shared consciousness, and they could not understand human concepts of personal terror. Oh Tae-hyun gathered the surviving colonists and began teaching them how to weaponize their farming equipment. The atmospheric processors that had been used to maintain perfect growing conditions could be modified to create toxic environments for the aliens. Weather control systems designed for irrigation could be turned into area denial weapons. Even the greenhouse facilities could be converted into ammunition factories using materials that were already available on the planet. The Veltar responded to their initial defeat by bringing additional forces from other star systems. Their reinforcement fleet arrived 3 days after the first battle and consisted of ships that were larger and more heavily armored than anything the humans had seen before. The alien command structure had learned from their previous encounters, and they came prepared for the strange tactics that humans employed. Pilot Kang Jiwoo joined the human forces with a squadron of converted civilian ships. He had been flying cargo vessels for 8 years, but the situation on Kepler 442b required every available pilot to participate in combat operations. His ship was a modified grain hauler that now carried improvised weapons and armor plating. The conversion looked ridiculous, but it flew well and could deliver devastating firepower against surprised enemies. Dr. Park Yuna made a breakthrough discovery while analyzing captured Veltar biotechnology. She found that the aliens reproduced using a complex pheromone system that could be disrupted by compounds that were common in Earth agriculture. Simple spices and fertilizers could interfere with Veltar breeding cycles and cause their population to collapse. This information was immediately shared with Oh Tae-hyun, who began developing what he called biological warfare, using kitchen ingredients. The second battle began when Veltar forces attempted to establish a permanent base on the planet's largest continent. The aliens had learned to expect human attacks from space, but they were not prepared for ground forces equipped with weaponized farming equipment. Oh Tae-hyun led a team of colonists armed with modified harvesters and seed planters against the alien landing site. The results were spectacular and terrifying. Commander Kim Do-hyun coordinated the defense from orbit while watching his improvised fleet engage massive alien warships. The human vessels were outnumbered 50-1, but they had advantages that no military academy had ever taught. Creativity and desperation combined with mining equipment created weapons that the Veltar could not predict or counter. Every human ship fought differently, and the aliens could not develop effective countermeasures. Dr. Bai Suyeon implemented her psychological warfare campaign by broadcasting human war cries and horror movie soundtracks on Veltar communication frequencies. The aliens had never encountered deliberate attempts to cause fear, and the sounds disrupted their collective thinking. Veltar ships began making tactical errors, and some even abandoned their missions to escape the terrible noises that hurt their group mind. The battle for the agricultural rings became a turning point in the war. Humans used orbital farming platforms as kinetic weapons by launching them at Veltar ships using modified cargo launchers. The platforms were designed to be sturdy enough to survive atmospheric entry, and they proved effective as improvised missiles. Several alien vessels were destroyed by farming equipment traveling at orbital velocity. Oh Tae-hyun discovered that Veltar bioships were vulnerable to specific types of acid that were used in agricultural processing. The aliens had evolved natural defenses against most chemical weapons, but Earth-based compounds affected them in unexpected ways. He began producing what he called bug spray, using materials from the colony's food processing facilities. The results were devastating when deployed against Veltar ground forces. Pilot Kang Jiwoo led the first successful infiltration of a Veltar hive ship using modified mining suits as assault armor. The alien vessel was designed to keep other species out, but the humans had cutting tools that could breach any hull. Once inside, they discovered that the ship's biological systems could be sabotaged using simple Earth bacteria that the Veltar had no immunity against. Dr. Park Yuna worked with the infiltration team to map the interior of Veltar ships and identify critical systems. She found that the aliens relied on living components for everything from navigation to weapons control. These biological systems were efficient, but they could be killed using modified antibiotics and cleaning supplies. The humans began carrying spray bottles filled with household chemicals as their primary weapons. The Galactic Council sent observers to monitor the conflict, but they were horrified by what they witnessed. The human approach to warfare violated every principle of civilized combat that had been established over millions of years of galactic history. Instead of honorable battles between matched forces, the humans used deception, terror, and weapons that were improvised from civilian equipment. The observers filed reports that described human tactics as insane and effective. Commander Kim Do-yun received orders from the Galactic Council to cease all military operations and withdraw from Kepler 442b immediately. He read the message while watching his crews load agricultural chemicals into missile warheads and decided that the Council could file their complaints with someone who cared. The humans had come to save innocent lives, and they would continue, fighting until the job was finished. Dr. Bae Soo-yeon achieved a major breakthrough when she successfully communicated with an isolated Veltar soldier. The alien was separated from its hive mind and experiencing individual consciousness for the first time in its existence. The creature was terrified and confused by the sensation of being alone with its thoughts. This discovery led to new tactics designed to isolate Veltar forces and break their collective unity. The war entered a new phase when Oh Tae-hyun completed construction of the first hybrid human Veltar weapons. He had reverse-engineered alien, biotechnology, and combined it with human engineering principles to create tools that operated on creativity rather than collective programming. The Veltar could not adapt to these weapons because they worked according to individual innovation instead of shared knowledge. Kang Ji-woo's squadron achieved legendary status when they completed what became known as the Farmer's Charge. His converted agricultural vessels engaged the largest Veltar battleship using tactics that made no military sense, but worked perfectly against confused aliens. The attack succeeded through pure audacity, as the humans did things that the enemy collective mind considered impossible. Dr. Park Yuna established communication with Veltar command structure using captured biotechnology and her knowledge of alien psychology. She delivered humanity's first formal ultimatum to a galactic species and explained exactly what would happen if the attacks continued. Her message was simple and terrifying because it came from someone who understood both human determination and alien weaknesses. The ultimatum gave the Veltar 24 hours to withdraw from Kepler 442b and surrounding star systems. If they refused, the humans promised to demonstrate why Earth was classified as a Class 12 death world and why its inhabitants were considered the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The alien collective mind debated the threat while human forces prepared for the final battle that would determine the fate of both species. The Veltar response to humanity's ultimatum came in the form of their primary war fleet, emerging from faster-than-light travel around Kepler 442b. The alien armada consisted of over 10,000 ships, including massive hive vessels that were each the size of a small moon. The collective mind had decided that sufficient numbers would overcome human tactics, and they brought enough firepower to destroy entire star systems. Commander Kim Do-yun looked at the sensor readings and smiled because the aliens had just made the biggest mistake in their species' history. The human response escalated proportionally to the threat as reinforcements arrived from 3 different star systems. Captain Lee Min-ho now commanded a fleet of converted mining ships, agricultural vessels, and cargo haulers that had been turned into the most unconventional navy in galactic history. Each ship was unique because human crews had modified them according to their own ideas about warfare. The result was a force that no enemy could predict or counter because even the humans were not sure what they were capable of doing. Dr. Park Yuna coordinated intelligence gathering from the surface of Kepler 442b while Oh Tae-hyun prepared the planet's defenses for the largest battle in human history. They had spent weeks turning the entire world into a weapons platform using nothing but farming equipment and industrial chemicals. The atmospheric processors now generated toxic clouds that could kill Veltar forces. Weather control systems had been weaponized to create localized storms, and even the soil itself had been treated with compounds that would poison alien landing parties. The Battle of the Agricultural Rings began when Veltar forces attempted to destroy the orbital farming platforms that humans had been using as improvised weapons. The aliens expected to face static defenses, but discovered that the platforms could move and fight back using modified harvesting equipment. Captain Song Mira led the defense of Ring 7 with a squadron of grain haulers equipped with mining lasers, and she proved that human creativity knew no limits when it came to violence. Pilot Kang Ji-woo received orders to lead the most insane mission in military history when Kim Do-hyun decided to capture a Veltar queen ship intact. The alien command vessel was 20 kilometers long and protected by thousands of escort fighters, but it contained the primary intelligence that controlled the entire invasion fleet. Kang Ji-woo's squadron consisted of 12 converted civilian ships and a plan that involved flying directly into the most heavily defended target in the galaxy. Dr. Bae Soo-yeon implemented the final phase of her psychological warfare campaign by broadcasting recordings of human children laughing and singing on all Veltar communication frequencies. The aliens had never encountered the concept of innocent joy, and the sounds caused massive confusion in their collective consciousness. Veltar ships began abandoning their formations, and some even fired on their own forces, as the hive mind struggled to process emotions it could not understand. The infiltration of the Queen ship began when Oh Tae-hyun led an assault team equipped with modified mining suits and weapons that had been improvised from kitchen appliances. The human soldiers cut through the alien hull using tools designed for asteroid mining and entered a biological maze that was both spaceship and living creature. They carried spray bottles filled with household cleaners and antibiotics that proved more effective than military weapons against Veltar biotechnology. Engineer Choi Hana achieved the impossible when she successfully reverse-engineered a complete Veltar hive vessel and created hybrid weapons that operated on human principles. The aliens could not adapt to these tools because they worked according to individual creativity rather than collective programming. Each weapon was unique and unpredictable because it reflected the personality of its human operator rather than standardized military doctrine. The space battle raged for 18 hours as human forces demonstrated why Earth was considered the most dangerous planet in the galaxy. Captain Lee Min-ho led a charge of mining ships against a Veltar super battleship using tactics that violated every principle of military science. His crews fired mining charges from cargo launchers while broadcasting human music at maximum volume to disrupt alien coordination. The attack succeeded because it was too insane for the enemy to predict. Dr. Park Yuna made contact with isolated Veltar soldiers who had been cut off from their hive mind, and she discovered that individual aliens were capable of fear, doubt, and even surrender. This information was immediately transmitted to all human forces and led to new tactics designed to separate enemy units from their collective consciousness. Once alone, the aliens became confused and vulnerable to psychological manipulation. Commander Kim Do-hyun coordinated the largest combined arms operation in human history as his forces attacked Veltar positions on 17 different fronts simultaneously. The aliens expected linear progression and logical tactics, but humans attacked everywhere at once, using weapons that should not have worked but somehow did. Agricultural equipment destroyed alien battleships, while kitchen chemicals dissolved. Enemy armor and household cleaning supplies poisoned biological systems. The turning point came when Kang Ji-woo's infiltration team reached the command center of the Veltar Queen ship and discovered that the entire alien fleet was controlled by a single massive brain. Oh Tae-hyun realized that they could communicate directly with the collective intelligence and deliver humanity's final ultimatum in person. Dr. Park Yuna was brought aboard using a captured alien shuttle to serve as translator and diplomat. The confrontation between human and alien intelligence took place in a biological chamber at the heart of the Queen ship. Dr. Park Yuna stood before a creature that was part computer and part living brain, while Oh Tae-hyun held a spray bottle filled with antibiotics that could destroy the entire Veltar command structure. She spoke directly to the collective mind and explained exactly what humans were capable of doing when they decided to fight. The alien intelligence experienced individual fear for the first time in its existence as it realized that these strange creatures from Earth would never stop fighting and would never give up. The humans had turned farming equipment into weapons of war, used kitchen chemicals as military assets, and demonstrated tactical creativity that the collective mind could not counter. Worse, they seemed to enjoy the challenge of fighting against impossible odds. Dr. Bae Soo-yeon provided psychological analysis of the Veltar collective and explained how the hive mind could be permanently damaged by continued exposure to human warfare. The aliens were evolved for efficiency and coordination, but human tactics caused stress reactions that built up over time. Eventually, the collective consciousness would break down completely, and the entire species would lose the ability to function as a unified entity. The Veltar Queen Brain made a decision that shocked every member of the collective intelligence. Instead of continuing a war that they could not win using conventional tactics, the aliens chose to withdraw from not just Kepler 442b, but from the entire galactic region. The collective mind decided that contact with humans was too dangerous for their species, and they would retreat to distant parts of the galaxy where they would never encounter Earth's children again. Captain Lee Min-ho received the surrender message while leading an attack against the largest Veltar battleship in the enemy fleet. The alien vessel was already damaged by mining charges and kitchen chemicals when its crew broadcast a message of unconditional withdrawal. The humans had achieved total victory using weapons that were improvised from civilian equipment and tactics. That made no sense according to military science. The evacuation of Veltar forces began immediately as thousands of alien ships fled toward the edge of the star system. The collective mind was so desperate to escape that they abandoned equipment, wounded personnel, and strategic positions without attempting to recover anything. Commander Kim Do-hyun allowed them to leave because the humans had proven their point and achieved their objective of saving the colonists. Dr. Park Yuna emerged from the Queen ship as the first human to successfully negotiate with a galactic hive mind and live to tell about it. Her report would become required reading at every military academy in human space, and her analysis of Veltar psychology would influence diplomatic relations for centuries. She had proven that even the most alien intelligence could be understood and defeated by human determination. Oh Tae-hyun stood in the ruins of the Veltar landing site surrounded by weapons that he had built from farming equipment and household supplies. The improvised arsenal had defeated the most advanced military force in the galaxy and established humanity's reputation as the species that other races called when they needed someone to fight the impossible war. His modifications would be studied and copied by military engineers across human space. The final Veltar ship disappeared into faster-than-light travel as the collective mind retreated to the far edges of the galaxy. The aliens had learned a lesson that would be remembered by their species for millions of years. They had encountered the children of Earth and discovered why humans were classified as Deathworlders. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again. The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as the final Veltar transmission was broadcast to the assembled delegates. The alien collective mind spoke with a voice that carried the fear of an entire species as it announced their withdrawal from all inhabited systems and their decision to retreat beyond the galactic rim. The Hive intelligence explained that contact with humans had proven too dangerous for their continued existence, and they would never again venture into space occupied by the children of Earth. Admiral Lee Min-ho stood on the bridge of the Iron Will and watched the last alien ships disappear into the darkness between stars. His promotion had come through official channels, along with command of humanity's first interstellar defense force. The mining vessel that had started this war was now the flagship of a fleet dedicated to protecting peaceful worlds from threats that conventional military forces could not handle. He looked at the crew that had followed him into an impossible battle and felt proud of what they had accomplished. Dr. Park Yuna addressed the Galactic Council as the first human representative to speak before the assembled delegates. She wore the uniform of the newly created Interspecies Psychological Warfare Academy and carried reports that detailed exactly how a handful of converted mining ships had defeated the most feared military force in the galaxy. Her presentation was calm and professional, but every word carried the implicit threat of what humans could do when properly motivated. The council delegates listened in stunned silence as Dr. Park Yuna explained human tactical philosophy and the principles that had guided their victory over the Veltar. She described how farming equipment had been converted into weapons, how kitchen chemicals had dissolved alien armor, and how psychological warfare had broken a collective mind that had dominated space for millions of years. The implications were clear to every species represented in the chamber. Commander Kim Do-hyun accepted his appointment as the first human ambassador to the Galactic Council with a speech that became famous throughout civilized space. He thanked the Council for their support during the crisis and politely ignored the fact that they had provided no assistance whatsoever. His diplomatic language could not hide the message that humanity would protect innocent lives with or without official approval from galactic authorities. The formal recognition of humanity as a protected Deathworld species came with unprecedented military authority and the right to intervene in conflicts that threatened peaceful civilizations. The council members had witnessed the entire war through their observers, and they understood that giving humans official permission was better than having them operate without oversight. The phrase, "send the humans," was already spreading through diplomatic channels as the standard response to impossible military situations. Engineer Choi Hana received funding to establish the Human Improvised Weapons Development Corps on Kepler 442b, using facilities that had been built from the ruins of Veltar equipment. Her research teams studied captured alien technology and combined it with human engineering to create tools that no other species could understand or operate. The weapons worked on principles of individual creativity that were impossible for collective minds to counter. Specialist Oh Tae-hyun became the director of the new facility and began training other humans in the art of converting civilian equipment into military assets. His courses were classified as the most dangerous educational program in the galaxy because they taught people to see weapons in everything around them. Students learned to weaponize farming equipment, household chemicals, and even cooking utensils with deadly effectiveness. Dr. Bae Suyan published the definitive study on hive mind psychology and established protocols for psychological warfare against collective intelligences. Her work became required reading for all human military personnel and was translated into every major galactic language. The techniques she had developed during the Veltar War were now available to any species that faced similar threats. Pilot Kang Ji-woo led the newly formed Human Rapid Response Fleet on its first official mission when a distress call arrived from the Antares system. The peaceful Jelti civilization was under attack by automated probe ships that were stripping their worlds of resources. The Galactic Council had been debating response options for 3 months while the situation deteriorated. Kang Ji-woo's fleet resolved the crisis in 6 hours using tactics that involved ramming converted cargo ships into enemy vessels. The success at Antares led to more requests for human intervention as word spread through the galaxy about the species that could win impossible wars. The calls came from civilizations that had exhausted all conventional options and needed someone willing to use unconventional tactics. Humans developed a reputation as the galaxy's troubleshooters who could solve problems that no one else would. Even attempt. Kepler 442b became the first official human military protectorate and was rebuilt as a fortress world that could defend entire star systems. The colonists who had survived the Veltar invasion now trained new recruits in the art of Deathworld warfare. The farming communities were maintained, but they also served as testing grounds for new weapons and tactics that pushed the boundaries of military science. Dr. Park Yuna established the Interspecies Communication Center on the rebuilt research station where she had made her first contact with human forces. The facility became the primary location for diplomatic contact between humans and alien species that needed military assistance. Her protocols for negotiating with non-human intelligences were adopted by diplomatic services throughout human space. The Galactic Council officially apologized for their failure to respond to the original distress call from Kepler 442b and acknowledged that human intervention had saved thousands of innocent lives. The apology was accepted graciously, but everyone understood that humanity would never again wait for official permission to help those in need. The precedent had been established, and humans would act according to their own moral code, regardless of political considerations. Admiral Lee Min-ho received the first of many distress calls that would define humanity's role in galactic affairs. The message came from a mining colony in the Vega system where unknown attackers were using weapons that dissolved matter at the molecular level. The Galactic Council estimated that a response force would take 4 months to organize and deploy. Lee Min-ho's fleet could reach Vega in 18 hours. The response was immediate and overwhelming as human ships across 3 star systems changed course toward the new crisis. The crews were eager to test their improved weapons and tactics against a different type of enemy. They had learned valuable lessons from the Veltar War and had spent months developing new ways to turn civilian equipment into instruments of destruction. Commander Kim Do-yeon addressed the Galactic Council one final time before departing for his new diplomatic post. He thanked the delegates for their recognition of humanity's military capabilities and assured them that human forces would always be available to protect innocent lives. His speech ended with words that would be remembered throughout Galactic history as the unofficial motto of human military intervention. The phrase, "Deathworlders en route, prepare for overkill," became the standard response to distress calls that reached human space. It was both a promise of salvation for those in need and a warning to anyone who threatened peaceful civilizations. The galaxy had learned that humans were simultaneously its greatest protectors and its most dangerous warriors. Dr. Bae Suyon received reports from intelligence services across human space about species that were requesting direct communication with Earth rather than going through the Galactic Council. The traditional diplomatic structure was being bypassed as civilizations sought faster and more effective responses to military threats. Humanity was becoming the unofficial security force for the entire galaxy. The transformation was complete when the first formal alliance was signed between humanity and the Gelti civilization. The agreement established human military bases in their territory and created joint training programs for defensive operations. Other species began requesting similar arrangements as they recognized the value of having human protection against threats that conventional forces could not handle. Admiral Lee Minho stood on the bridge of the Iron Will as his expanded fleet prepared to jump to faster-than-light travel toward the Vega crisis. His ships were no longer converted mining vessels, but purpose-built warships that incorporated lessons learned from the Veltar campaign. They carried weapons that were designed using human creativity and alien technology in combinations that were unique in the galaxy. The final message came from the edge of known space, where long-range sensors had detected the Veltar collective retreating toward the galactic rim. The aliens broadcast a warning to any species that might consider attacking human settlements or their allies. The message was simple and terrifying in its implications because it came from a hive mind that had learned to fear individual creativity. The Veltar warned that humans were unlike any other species in the galaxy because they could turn anything into a weapon, and they would never stop fighting to protect those they cared about.